At least 81 killed in Israeli strikes on Gaza as Trump reiterates calls for a ceasefire. US President Donald Trump has reiterated calls for a ceasefire between Hamas and Israel as Gaza's health authority said 81 people were killed in Israel strikes in the past 24 hours. In a post on Truth Social on Sunday, he wrote, "Make the deal in Gaza, get the hostages back." It comes as an Israeli official said plans were being made for Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to travel to Washington DC in the coming weeks, as a sign there may be more movement on a new deal. Also, on News at 10 tonight. Starmer says he was heavily focused on the international affairs before a welfare U-turn. Sir Keir Starmer said he did not get to grips with the growing rebellion over welfare reforms earlier as he was focused on international affairs. He also said he took ownership for his decisions and believed, as leader, he should carry the can when things do not go well. Also, PIP and Universal Credit Cuts explains who will be hit and how much will they lose since the government's planned welfare cuts were first announced in March. Concern among disabled people, charities and backbench MPs has continued to grow. The outcry in response to the reforms has plagued Sir Keir Starmer with his ministers as they seek to win over Labour's MPs on the charges. The family of a man murdered 10 years ago in his home say they are unhappy with police's handling of the case and believe they have been robbed of justice. 74-year-old David Brickwood was found stabbed and beaten at his home in Lindsley Avenue, Abington in the early hours of September 26, 2015. And soaring temperatures for today. A scorching Monday is in store for much of Britain as the second amber heat alert arrives for the second time in 2 weeks, remains in place in England, and it's not going to get any cooler.
This is STV News at 10 with Stephen Woolridge.
Good evening. US President Donald Trump has reiterated calls for a ceasefire between Hamas and Israel, as Gaza's health authorities said 81 people were killed in Israel strikes in the past 24 hours. In a post on Truth Social on Sunday, Mr. Trump wrote, "Make the deal in Gaza, get the hostages back." It comes as an Israeli official said plans were being made for Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to travel to Washington DC in the coming weeks, a sign there may be movement on a new deal. On Friday, Trump raised expectations for a deal, saying there could be a ceasefire agreement within the next week. Taking questions from reporters, he said, "We're working on Gaza and trying to get it taken care of." Despite an 8-week ceasefire reached just as Trump was taken to office earlier this year, attempts since then to bring the sides towards a new agreement have failed. Meanwhile, the Israeli military on Sunday ordered a mass evacuation of Palestinians in a large force in northern Gaza, an early target of the war that has been severely damaged by multiple rounds of fighting. Cole Achabi-Derei, a military spokesperson, posted the order on social media. It includes multiple neighbourhoods in eastern and northern Gaza City, as well as the Jabalia refuge camp. The military will expand its escalating attacks to the city's northern section, calling for people to move southward to Muswai area in southern Gaza, Adri said. Hundreds of thousands of people are in northern Gaza following their return during a ceasefire earlier this year. Meanwhile, the head of the UN's nuclear watchdog said the US strikes on Iran fell short of causing total damage to its nuclear program, and that Tehran could restart enriching uranium in a matter of months. The comments contradict Trump's claims that the US set Tehran's nuclear ambitions back by decades. Rafael Grossi's comments appear to support an early assessment from the Pentagon's Defense Intelligence Agency, first reported on by STV News' US partner CNN. which suggests the United States strike back on key Iranian nuclear sites last week, but did not destroy the core components of its nuclear program, and likely only set back by months. While the final military and intelligence assessment has yet to come, Trump has repeatedly claimed to have completely and totally obliterated Tehran's nuclear program. The 12-day conflict between Israel and Iran began earlier this month, when Israel launched an unprecedented attack it said aimed at preventing Tehran developing a nuclear bomb. Iran has insisted its nuclear program is for peaceful purposes. Sir Keir Starmer has said he did not get to grips with the growing rebellion over welfare reforms earlier, as he was focused on international affairs. He also said he took ownership for his decisions and believed as leader he should carry the can when things do not go well. The Prime Minister said he was occupied with the G7 and NATO summits and the escalating tensions in the Middle East for much of the past 2 weeks. He said he was heavily focused on what was happening with NATO and the Middle East all weekend, and that his full attention really bore down on the welfare bill on Thursday. He defended the eventual U-turn, which came after more than 100 MPs launched a bid to kill the legislation with an amendment. On Sunday, Wes Streeting said he is confident the government will win a crunch vote on the welfare next week. The House Secretary told Sky News Sunday Morning with Trevor Phillips, "The changes have put us in a much better position. As a result of the changes, it means anyone watching this morning who's in receipt of personal independent payments now has a peace of mind of knowing that their situation is protected." Speaking on Sunday Times, Starmer said getting it right is more important than ploughing on with a package that doesn't necessarily achieve the desired outcome. He said all the decisions were his and that I take ownership of them. There have been reports that rebel MPs blame Starmer's Chief of Staff Morgan McSweeney for the government's approach. Keir Starmer said, "My rule of leadership is when things go well, you get the plaudits, but things don't go well, you carry the can. I take responsibility for all the decisions made by this government. I do not talk about staff, and I'd much prefer it if everyone else didn't." Ministers had hoped reforms would get more people back into work and save up to £5 billion a year, but the concessions may leave Chancellor Rachel Reeves needing to find money elsewhere and point to possible tax rises in the autumn. On Saturday, the Prime Minister told the Welsh Labour Conference the broken welfare system must be fixed in a Labour way. He said, "We cannot take away the safety net that vulnerable people rely on, and we won't, but we can also not let it become a snare for those who can and want to work." Conservative Party leader Kemi Badenoch will hit out at Starmer as incapable of sticking to a decision after he backed down on his plans. The reforms would only have made most modest reductions to the ballooning welfare bill, but the Prime Minister was too weak to hold the line, the Conservative Party leader expected to say in a speech next week. The government's original welfare package had restricted eligibility for PIP, the main disability payment in England, as well as cutting the health-related element of universal credit. Existing recipients were to be given a 13-week phase-out period of financial support in an earlier move that was seen as a bid to head off opposition. Now the changes to PIP will be implemented in November 2026 and apply to new claimants only, while all existing recipients of the health element of universal credit will have their incomes protected in real terms. The concessions on PIP alone protect some 370,000 people currently receiving the allowance who are set to lose out following reassessment. As a year in office nears, more than half of voters think Labour has underperformed in that time, polling released on Saturday showed. The opinion survey showed 54% think Labour has done a worse job than expected, while 18% think the party has exceeded expectations. Since the government's planned welfare cuts were first announced in March, concerning among concern among disabled people, charities and backbench MPs has continued to grow. The outcry in response to the reforms has plagued Sir Keir Starmer and his ministers as they seek to win over Labour MPs on the charges. After more than 120 Labour MPs backed a move to block the legislation, the government is now discussing the prospect of concessions with rebellion backbenchers. But what are the changes? How many will be affected? And why are MPs so angry about it? Well, our political editor Robert Peston is here to explain more. Robert, what is PIP and who will lose out under the cuts? Well, Stephen, personal injury payment PIP is said to support with a long-term physical or mental health condition or disability. It is not connected to whether you can go to work or not, and is designed to cover the additional costs associated with being disabled or long-term sick. There are current 3.7 million people claiming PIP, and under the government's changes, it's estimated the cuts will affect around 800,000 people. There are two parts to PIP, the daily living component and the motability component. The motability component is not affected by the changes, but the government is making it more difficult for people to claim the daily living component by tightening eligibility. People are assessed for PIP through questions about their ability to do different daily tasks independently, with each task scaled on a scale from 0 to 12. They currently need to score 8 points across the different categories for the standard rate of the 12, or 12 for the higher rate. But under the new plans, from November 2026, claimants will need to score at least 4 points for one activity rather than a lower number of points across multiple activities. For example, an individual who needs help washing their hair or their body below their waist will score 2 points and therefore no longer qualify. But the needing help washing between the shoulders and the waist is worth 4 points, meaning that would make someone eligible. Okay, Robert Peston, thank you. Next this evening, the family of a man murdered 10 years ago in his home say they are unhappy with the police's handling of the case and believe that they have been robbed of justice. 74-year-old David Brickwood was found stabbed and beaten at his home in Lindsay Avenue, Abington, in the early hours of September 26, 2015. He was attacked during a torture beating robbery and died shortly afterwards. Now, a report by the Independent Office for Police Conduct has found Northamptonshire Police did not pursue forensic leads at the time of initial investigation, which would have potentially strengthened the case. In April 2021, a 27-year-old man was cleared of murdering Mr. Brickwood after a judge ruled that DNA evidence found on a window frame seal was plainly insufficient to prove the Crown's case. The court was told a 1 in a billion DNA match with St. Rose could have been the result of his presence at the scene or of a secondary transfer, such as someone else using a glove he had previously worn. David Brickwood's sons, Nathan and Dale, say they have been robbed of justice. Nathan Brickwood says, "You can have a day when you feel fine and then suddenly there is just a mad emotional hurt that just comes up on you. You just find it hard at times and you are thinking, why do I feel like this? And then you put it together." Dale Brickwood, David's son, says the results of the IOPC report are sickening. He says, "Gutted, devastated. So what they're saying is, if officers had done their job, we would have had justice, but because there was incompetence, we've been robbed of justice." The IOPC report concluded that forensics opportunities were key to identifying suspects. It found that during this investigation, these opportunities were not pursued in 2016, and when they were in 2020, it led to the identification of a suspect who was charged, who then was acquitted. The report continues saying it is possible that they had forensic leads being pursued earlier. Other evidence would have been made available, for example from house and vehicle searches, which were no longer available in 2020, which would have potentially have strengthened the case and identified other suspects and or led to convictions. Northamptonshire Police Constable Ivan Balachet has apologised to David's family. He says, "I know that the grief David's family live with every day is only compounded by the fact that, as of yet, no one has been held accountable for his death, and it is clear from the report that the level of service provided to them by the investigation team in 2015 was not acceptable. For that, I apologise unreservedly." And finally, a scorching Sunday is in store for much of Britain as the second amber heat alert health alert in 2 weeks remains in place in England. The temperature could hit 30 degrees in London, 28 degrees in the east of England, and 28 degrees in the Midlands, the Met Office has said. But those in Scotland and the England southwest will have some respite, with 21 and 23 being the highest the mercury will reach, respectively. Saturday saw temperatures top 30 degrees in England, with a provisional top temperature of 31.3 degrees Celsius in Heathrow, according to the Met Office. It could turn muggy for some, as Sunday will see a band of cloud and rain across central parts of the UK, gradually edging northwards. This rain may ease for some time before turning heavier in the far northwest later in the day. Southern areas will start cloudy with some patchy drizzle on the western hills, but there will be plenty of dry weather too, with sunny spells developing. It comes as a second amber heat health alert in 2 weeks coming to force on Friday. The alert, which covers London, the East Midlands, South East, South West and East of England, will last until 6 p.m. Tuesday. The UK Health Security Agency also issued a yellow alert for Yorkshire and Humber and the West Midlands for the same time period, with the agency warning of significant impacts across health and social care services. Temperatures could reach 34 degrees on Monday, which, if it did, would only be the fourth time in June since the 1930s. The June record, which could be surpassed, stands at 35.6 Celsius, recorded at Southampton Mayflower Park on June 28, 1976, and again at Camden Square in North London on the 29th of June 1957. An amber alert was previously issued for regions in England on the 19th of June, the first time it had been used since September 2023. On the same day, temperatures reached 32.2 degrees Celsius in Kew, West London, before heatwaves declared across England and Wales. An official heatwave is recorded when areas reach a certain temperature for 3 consecutive days, with thresholds varying between 25 to 28 degrees in different parts of the UK. And that is tonight's news at 10. From all of us here, good night, and thank you very much indeed for watching.